$2,217.21. That's how much I collected in dividends last month from just one of my investments. In fact, that's how much I collected from my Vanguard Cash Reserve Federal Money Market Fund. My money in that money market fund paid out $2,217.21 in dividends. And this is because interest rates are so high right now that if you have cash in a high yield savings account, in CDs, in money market funds, you are going to be collecting some really high returns relative to what returns were in those same accounts a year ago. And this is a really good thing for people that are savers. But these high interest rates are creating kind of a conundrum for people. People that have money to either invest or save, and they're having to make a decision between putting their money in a safe place like a high yield savings account or a money market fund, or investing in the stock market. And a lot more people are choosing to put their money in the safe investments, in the high yield savings accounts, or in the money market mutual funds. And it makes a lot of sense because if you are getting a 5% return guaranteed, that just seems like easy money. But there's another side to this. When you invest your money in those safe places, the potential for returns is minimized. And so I want to talk about this conundrum that a lot of people are faced with. Should you invest in the stock market and look for greater returns but take on more risk? Or should you put your money in a safe place that's going to give you a high yielding return because interest rates are so high? It's a big decision, and it's a hard decision to make right now because we are in such a strange place with the stock market and with interest rates. And so to help have this discussion, I am actually going to take you guys into my investment account and share with you guys the returns that I have been getting from my money market mutual fund versus the returns I have been getting in my investment portfolio that invests in stocks, ETFs, and index funds. Okay, so the first thing I want to look at is the cash that we deposited into our money market mutual fund. So if you guys have been keeping up with our story, you know that we recently sold our home here in Portugal and we got a huge payday. We got a bunch of cash from the sale of that home, and we took that cash and we put it in a money market mutual fund because we're going to use that cash to buy our next home here in Portugal. And so what I'm going to show you now is that money along with some other money that was already in that money market mutual fund to show you what the returns have been for having that cash in the money market mutual fund with interest rates as high as they are. And then after that, I'm going to share with you guys the returns that we have been getting from our investment accounts that primarily invest in individual stocks, ETFs, and index funds. So this is where we've been keeping our house buying fund in the Vanguard Cash Reserves Federal Money Market Fund Admiral shares. As you can see, our money market fund is called VMRXX. The current yield is 5.30%. That's the interest that you're going to get on the money that you deposit in this money market fund. And so VMRXX is currently paying 5.3% in interest. Now that is amazing relative to how much these money market funds were paying a year ago. Now I want to go a step further and look at what VMRXX has paid out annually in interest over the past year. Now, as you can see from this chart, over the past year, this fund has paid 4.63% in interest. Now I bring this up because I want you to keep that in mind, that even though it's currently paying 5.3% in interest, over the year, it's only paid 4.63% in interest. Now, Christine and I have been really happy with this rate of return. It has been a great place to keep the money that we will need in a relatively short amount of time if we are planning on buying a house in the next 3 years. And this is really important to remember. Because we plan on accessing this money in a relatively short amount of time, we have chosen not to invest this money in the stock market because the stock market can be very volatile over a short period of time. And so we wouldn't want to put this money in the stock market and need it to buy a home when stocks are down. And so we would have less money to be able to access to be able to buy a home. Now, on the other hand, if we planned on not using this money over the short term, we would have certainly invested this in the stock market, even with interest rates as high as they are for money market funds. And I say this because of the second thing that I'm going to show you, the rate of return that we have been getting from investing in the stock market. And so if I go over to the performance of our investment portfolios and I look at it over the past year, I see that we have been getting a return of 21.3%. Now keep in mind, these are just my brokerage accounts. They're not Christina's. All of these are in my name, and so it includes my retirement accounts and my non-retirement accounts, but also it does include Malia and Sonoa's custodial accounts because those are held with my brokerage accounts. Now, I actually want to go a step further. I want to look at the returns that I have been getting from just my retirement accounts over the past year. And if you just look at my retirement accounts, which include my traditional IRA, my Roth IRA, my SEP IRA, you'll see that over the past year, my rate of return has been 23.5% in those retirement accounts. And those retirement accounts are 100% invested in individual stocks, index funds, and ETFs. Now, let's go over and look and see what I am getting on just my normal brokerage account. It's called a non-retirement account. But if you look at the return over the past year, I have gotten 20.8% return. Now I'm sharing this with you guys because I want you to take this into consideration when you are thinking about where to put your money to work to build wealth over the long term. And for us, when we are talking about building wealth over the long term, we prefer to have our cash, our money, invested in the stock market. So either through individual stocks, ETFs, or index funds, or REITs. That's how we prefer to invest to build wealth over the long term. Now, if we have short-term goals like buying a car, buying a house, we set aside money that we need to be able to access over the short term. And money that you need to access in a relatively short amount of time, that's the money that you keep in the money market accounts, that maybe you keep in CDs, that maybe you keep in a high yield savings account. Accounts that are easy to liquidate and access so that you can make that purchase. Accounts that don't have a lot of volatility like the stock market. Accounts that give you a guaranteed or fixed rate of return. And I know that right now it can seem like the stock market is very, very volatile. It seems like a scary place to put your money. But when you are talking about growing your wealth over the long term, the stock market is still a better place in our mind to build wealth. And so keep that in mind when you see the stock market going up and down and going through all these gyrations. These are actually opportunities for you. When you see the stock market down, it means that you are able to invest and buy stocks at a discount. And so if you are in the phase of accumulation where you are just now building your wealth, you really want to have volatility in the stock market. You want the stock market to have significant drops so that you can go in and scoop up those deals. Because when the stock market rebounds, you will reap the benefits, especially over the long term. So I bring this up so that you have all of this as food for thought as you are making your decision on where to put your money as you build wealth over the long term, or maybe you secure your dollars over the short term. And so if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and join the journey.